Today on Retire with Purpose, creating lasting income from real estate, your withdrawal war chest, and how much you actually need to retire.
Welcome to Retire with Purpose, a show specifically designed to help you maximize your financial confidence in retirement. Casey Weade is the CEO and Chief Visionary of Howard Bailey Financial, a certified financial planner and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. He's your host on Retire with Purpose.
So what role can real estate play in funding your retirement? Well, today we're going to find out. I'm Lee Kelso here with Casey Weade, certified financial planner. He's also the president at Howard Bailey Financial, best-selling author, and the host of the Retire with Purpose podcast, which gave Casey a chance to talk with Jason Hartman, a leading real estate investor.
Yeah, we're talking to Jason Hartman all over again. We originally talked to Jason back on episode number 128 of the Retire with Purpose podcast, where we covered what was happening with the coronavirus, how that was going to impact your rental real estate and your rental real estate strategy. We reconnected with Jason here on episode number 182 because I really want to discuss how real estate plays a role in a retirement strategy. He has literally been involved in thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He's owned income properties in 17 different cities in 11 different states. This guy believes in real estate and specific types of real estate income as well, specific types of rental real estate properties that will provide you lasting income. He shares with us here why he believes rental properties are the bread and butter of lasting income.
You know what? It's if you look at what has gone on in the world the last 15 years and then the last several months, it has really proven what I have been teaching people for 17 years, and that is that the home is the center of the universe. And just simple income-producing properties, bread and butter type properties, basic income properties are what people always need. They have universal need. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, and it doesn't say it exactly this way, but the take we can get from that is that every human has three common needs: food, clothing, and shelter. Okay, and let them rent that shelter from you. That's what I say. So these income-producing properties in the right markets, in the right areas, following my 10 commandments of successful investing, they just work. They work year in, they work year out. They've worked for decades. They will work for decades to come. It's the most historically proven asset class in the entire world.
You know, Jason covered some really neat things during this interview. I would encourage you to check out the Retire with Purpose YouTube channel because he shared with us a lot of interesting charts. One of the charts that he shared with us had to do with demographic shifts and major trends in the rental property market today. And one of those, it was a big shocker for me, well, not maybe a shocker, but one that really created some light bulbs. And I think one that we had a lot of good feedback on had to do with these demographic shifts and how that could be a boon to your rental property strategy if you take it into consideration when you're making these investments.
And what's fascinating about this, something that's really never happened before in history, is that the renter population is aging dramatically. Okay. And this is quite fascinating. So let's start back in 2007. We're dividing these renter populations into three demographic cohorts: people 34 and under, people 35 to 59, and then people 60 and over. And what this shows you is that the dramatic expansion in the renter population is age 60 and over. And this is really something that has never happened before in history. So these renters are getting older, there's really no stigma to being a renter anymore. There used to be. It used to be kind of people looked down their nose at renters and thought, oh,
Yeah.
well, you're not a homeowner, right? But people have realized that, number one, if you're renting a higher end property, that's actually a very good deal for the tenant. Okay. It's the ultimate arbitrage. It's a great deal. But number two, it really gives people a lot more flexibility and a lot more opportunity.
So what should you do? Maybe you're in that demographic, you're 60 and over, or you're getting close to retirement and you're contemplating, do I really still want to own property? Do I still want to own my home, or should I rent? I know many of the families we work with, they're deciding to sell their home and rent. And this right here, Jason's going to share with us the pros and cons of owning versus renting. I think what you hear here might shock you.
And when you're a homeowner, it actually restricts you. It bogs you down. It weighs you down. It limits your flexibility. Whereas if you're a renter, you can just give notice to your landlord and you can move to where there's a better opportunity. And America is a very mobile population. So, there's nothing wrong with renting. I think it's a great thing. Now, what I really recommend for people watching and listening are, most of your viewers and listeners are probably homeowners, and that's fine. There's certainly some psychological benefit to being a homeowner. I'm a homeowner. I've mostly been a homeowner throughout my life, but sometimes I've been a renter. And renting a high-end property for yourself and owning a lot of low-end properties that you rent to other people is a fantastic deal. That is the best double arbitrage ever.
I often find that real estate investors and business owners, they think about debt completely different than the average American. And Jason is one of those individuals. He shares with us here when debt can be a good thing and how to leverage it.
And one of the reasons I do like income property debt very much, I jokingly say it's my favorite four-letter word, is because, as income property investors, we don't pay our own debts. We outsource that obligation to people called tenants. Our tenants pay our debts. And so that creates what we call self-liquidating debt, because the tenant pays the debt. And it's similar to in the world of corporate raiders and Wall Street bigwigs. They use a strategy called an LBO, or a leveraged buyout. And I'm sure, of course, you've heard of that, and probably most of your listeners have. And so when you hear about Carl Icahn and the late T. Boone Pickens and all of these big Wall Street bigwigs, right? They use the LBO, or leveraged buyout strategy, which basically involves acquiring a company with a lot of debt and then having the income from the company pay off the debt for you. It's a fantastic strategy. It doesn't always work because businesses are much more volatile than income properties. But with income properties, they're pretty stable and secure. So the tenant pays the debt off for us, and that's just a beautiful thing. We outsource that obligation to the tenant. But inflation also repays that debt.
That is an interesting concept.
Yeah, you should see the other charts that come into play. I think they truly will blow your mind. When it comes to that leverage and leveraging debt, he has some really interesting strategies there. Albeit, I want to say, real estate shouldn't be everything, right? You should always stay diversified. You can't have everything in one asset class, but real estate can be a really powerful tool for a retirement strategy or just an accumulation strategy or lifestyle strategy.
And there's some examples of that in Casey's book, Job Optional. It's been on the Wall Street Journal bestsellers list and others as well. And we have a chance for you to pick up a copy of that book at no cost today. So I hope you're one of the next 10 callers at 866-482-9559 to learn more about how you can become job optional, reaching that state where you don't have to work if you choose not to. It's all about gaining the financial confidence and finding the formula to use the money you've already earned today to create a legacy that you can start living today. So be one of the next 10 callers at 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559, and request a copy of Casey's book, Job Optional. All right, when we come back, another interesting concept, having a war chest for your retirement and the single calculation that can tell you whether or not you're ready to retire. We're back in a second.
Hi, Casey Weade, president of Howard Bailey Financial. Planning for a secure and independent retirement requires staying on top of the latest trends. New retirement regulations, trillion-dollar stimulus packages, and a pivotal election year all need to be taken into consideration. The Howard Bailey team is here to support you. We develop retirement plans driven by meaning and purpose, so you can stop worrying about what's next and focus on what means the most to you today. Call now for a complimentary consultation and a customized plan of action. Hey there, and welcome back. We are now joined by my good friend, Marshal Johnson. Marshal joins us every single Friday on the Retire with Purpose podcast, where we cover one of the 4 articles that we send out at length as part of our Weekend for Retirees email series. You can sign up for that email every single Friday at retirewithpurpose.com. And in there, you will get 4 articles all about trending topics in the retirement planning space, all designed to help you make better decisions in retirement. And we're going to cover one of those 4 articles with you right now that has to do with an easy calculation to find out if you're going to be okay in retirement. This is an article that came to us from Kiplinger and was written by another financial advisor, a CPA, AIF, and had a really interesting way of calculating, an easy calculation to figure out if you're going to be okay. So Marshall, what caught your eye about this article?
You know, everybody loves the easy button, right, Casey? And that question that we hear all the time, whenever the stock market drops, whether it's 2008 financial crisis or March of 2020, are we going to be okay? And I think a lot of spouses are asking each other this when they see the market drop. And so here's an easy way that you can calculate for yourself, are you going to be okay next time the weather turns a little nasty in the stock market?
Well, and actually, before we ever recorded the podcast episode on this very topic, we had released this as part of Weekend Reading long before. And when we released it long before that period of time, I introduced it to the financial advisory team several weeks later. And I said, hey, I thought this was an interesting concept. We always like to cover the articles that we send out as Weekend Reading as a team. And I saw light bulbs go off around the room. They all go, oh, I love that idea. The withdrawal war chest. I never thought about it that way. We do it in all of our planning by default. It's part of our planning process, but they loved the concept. And we thought you would love the concept as well. I know this is going to be massively helpful for a lot of individuals out there. And the article kicks off with a discussion about the seasonality of the stock market.
Right, yeah, the market goes through these various cycles and they start to, well, here in Indiana, we get so used to the 4 seasons, but there are times where the stock market, it goes up and then it comes back down. It's a lot like spring, fall, summer, and winter.
There's seasons. There's seasons that we experience here in Indiana. In the Midwest, we get to go through these seasons, and I cherish them for the experiences that come along with them. In the spring, I find that, you know, we start to go outside. Maybe we're going to start wearing our shorts a little early, and now we're going, I'm not too sure I want to put on my long sleeve shirt yet. We're still a little cautious. Yeah. And then it gets warm, it's summertime, we're out there, we're having a good time, enjoying the sun. And for some reason, Marshall, it never feels like summer is going to end. It's just going to last forever.
That's a little bit like the market, right?
Fall comes back. Yeah. And as fall approaches, that period of time, we start to go back and get a little fearful. Maybe we're putting on some longer sleeves and things like that. I often find that I'm wearing shorts way too long. And then all of a sudden, we're hit by winter. You know, all of a sudden, overnight, it seems like it's 30 degrees, it's snowing outside, and now we get fearful. And I don't know about you, but when it turns winter, I go, boy, you know, I need to get out of here. We need to go to Florida. We need to get some special lights in the house to get some vitamin D. You know, we start panicking and maybe even making some poor decisions. And then fall comes, and then spring comes again. We start feeling good about things. A lot of parallels there with the experiences that you might have when you're in the stock market.
Yeah, I think it's a helpful discussion for people to be aware of these seasons and try to understand, you know, when the markets are hitting all-time highs and it's feeling good. You see the news reports every night when you come home from work that, hey, the market's hitting fresh highs. Well, that's summer. Everybody's feeling pretty good. Doesn't feel like it's ever going to turn over. It's not going to be winter again, but that when that winter does hit, as you mentioned in fall, a lot of people don't want to believe that it's coming, right? Yeah. Like, oh no, we're going to hang on to summer forever, and then all of a sudden they're faced with winter and they're not prepared.
Yeah. And sometimes I need somebody to talk some sense into me when we get into winter. And I think there's an easy calculation that you can do to talk some sense into yourself when it comes to those stock market winners.
Yeah, we talk about this war chest, and I love the descriptive nature of that term. It's the war chest, right? It's for emergencies in case we have to go to war, and that's a lot like a downturn in the stock market. So what this article lays out is taking this simple calculation, add up all your cash, your bank assets, your CDs, your savings accounts, and then add in some bonds from your stock portfolio, as well as the cash that may be in your account, and then divide this by your monthly spend.
Yeah, you could easily say it's your safe money.
Yep.
So take all your safe money, and then you're going to take that safe money, you're going to divide it by your monthly withdrawal. What you need to take out of there to satisfy your living expenses in retirement. So let's say that you have $100,000 in the bank. You have $500,000 in bonds, maybe fixed annuities, and maybe other secure assets or things that are backed by a legal reserve system. Usually that's going to be CDs or fixed annuities and cash. So you have $500,000 there, $100,000 in bank cash, that's $600,000. You're drawing $3,500 a month out of your investments. Take that war chest, that $600,000, divide it by the $3,500, and that means you have a 14-year plus war chest.
Yes.
You could satisfy all of your retirement income needs for 14 years without touching your equities. Retirement's largely psychological. The mistakes we make are largely psychological.
Right.
And if we know that we have a war chest, we're less likely to do those things that result in panic and selling when we shouldn't sell, because we know, hey, we're okay.
Right.
We've got 10 years. We have 15 years. We've sat down with individuals that have 30, 40 years, and they're still not sure they have enough. But we have to do this one simple calculation, and it'll solve that.
Yeah, I think it's very helpful for individuals to do this, because I sat down with a family just last night, and they're scared to death about retirement. He's kind of being forced into retirement. He doesn't feel like he's ready, and he's fearful of the market. Well, we looked down and looked at their situation, and they got 15 plus years in the war chest. They're able to relax and know that if the market goes through this difficult storm, that they've got enough left over to be able to weather that storm, and time is the key. They're able to wait out the downturn and wait for the sun to come back out again.
And when you come and visit with our team, we'll put together a retirement income strategy. We'll typically present it in 3 different forms, 3 different basic income strategies from a high level on varying degrees of risk. You have one strategy, which is all market-based. You have stocks and bonds, that typical retirement income strategy portfolio. However, it's going to be a bucketed strategy. Then you have at the other spectrum, a guaranteed income strategy to last the rest of your life. You're giving up some flexibility and upside. And then my favorite's the middle strategy. Usually we're guaranteeing 5, typically 10 years of your first 10 years of retirement income needs, and then we're taking some risk with those other second or third buckets.
Yeah, we talk about that 10 years. You hit that 10-year mark, and that's usually what somebody says, well, how much time do I need in my war chest? A lot of our income strategies are built around that 10-year time horizon. And Casey, your book, I will plug your book here, Job Optional, walks through, there's several segments of your book that walk through those various income strategies, and really does a deep dive into something that we couldn't explain here in 8 minutes.
Oh yeah, we talk about the systematic withdrawal strategy. We talk about your flooring strategies, your segmented income strategies, lifetime income guaranteed strategies. We walk you through the pros and cons of all of those things in my Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Job Optional. We want to put that in your hands right now. For the next 10 callers that call the number on our screen, we're going to send you out a free copy of my book, Job Optional. And we want you to stick around in just a minute. If you are concerned about major pitfalls that maybe you're missing out on as you step into retirement, we're going to talk about top retirement pitfalls. We're going to talk about misconceptions. We're also going to hit on real estate as a tool in retirement. We'll see you when we come back. Hi, Casey Weade, president of Howard Bailey Financial. Planning for a secure and independent retirement requires staying on top of the latest trends. New retirement regulations, trillion-dollar stimulus packages, and a pivotal election year all need to be taken into consideration. The Howard Bailey team is here to support you. We develop retirement plans driven by meaning and purpose, so you can stop worrying about what's next and focus on what means the most to you today. Call now for a complimentary consultation and a customized plan of action.
All right, time to answer some of your questions, and it's real easy to get a question into Casey and the Howard Bailey team. Just go to retirewithpurpose.com. At the bottom part of your screen, you will see a little chat window. You can put your question right there, and it'll get to Casey and the team, and we might invite you to join us on the program. That's exactly what we did with John in Bristol, Indiana.
In your opinion, what are the most common roadblocks individuals experience in planning for or successfully executing a retirement plan?
Well, John, first of all, I want to say that I used to spend quite a bit of time in Bristol. I grew up in Syracuse, and I had a calculus tutor there in Bristol when I was a kid. Believe it or not, calculus was a bit of a struggle when I was a kid, but thanks to great tutors, I was able to excel. Just a little side note, anecdote. But when it comes to retirement, some of the major impediments I find that individuals have to succeeding or actually getting over the hurdle, I would say, of actually stepping into retirement is just a lack of process. That there isn't a process to follow. They go, well, how am I supposed to get there? I have this pile of money. Now what do I do with it? How do I make that transition into retirement? And that's why it's so important to find a financial planner that has a process. How do you know that you're going to get to where you want to go in the end if you actually haven't put it in writing? You haven't put it in writing, meaning there isn't a process in writing, and then after you get through the process, you don't have an actual written plan. They say that there's less than 20% of pre-retirees that have a written retirement plan. That means there's a major roadblock there. Our process all starts where it should as well. I think sometimes we get the proverbial cart ahead of the horse where we're starting to plan for our investments before we've planned for our purpose. We haven't really defined what we want those investments or that financial plan to actually accomplish in our lives, where it's actually going to create meaning in our lives in the end, and we end up getting ourselves to the wrong place. Many times I find people shouldn't retire in the first place. They just didn't know that. They didn't really identify where they find purpose and meaning in life. So our process all starts with finding purpose. We want to help you define what that purpose is, what your vision of retirement is, where you find meaning, what your values are, what your mission statement for retirement is. After we've defined those things, then we can step into what we call our financial life plan that goes in a sequential order. First and foremost, we need liquidity for emergencies. And if we have liquidity for emergencies, then we need income to last a lifetime. After we've satisfied our income needs, now we need flexibility to be able to adapt that strategy because the world's going to change. You're going to change over time, and you need a plan that's flexible. One of those areas you might need to flex in is inflation. You need some assets that can produce some more income for you. That's flexibility. Next, you get your estate plan. You make sure your wills, your power of attorneys are covered. Those trust documents, if you need those, are also covered. Long-term care needs are covered. And throughout all that web of your financial life is tax planning. You're going to be paying taxes at every single point throughout that plan. So tax planning kind of runs throughout that. And if we do that well, now you have meaning. Now you can step into retirement. I've had clients sit down and go, wow, this is what I was looking for. Now I see for the first time that all my bases are covered and I can step into retirement. If you don't have a real process, you'll never know if all your bases are actually covered.
Brenda in Granger checks in with a question about real estate investment trusts.
Can you explain the role of a REIT within a retirement plan? Is it something worth considering?
Well, Brenda, REITs can play a role in a retirement plan, but definitely not a necessity in a retirement plan. These should be in small allocations in your overall retirement strategy or investment allocation for retirement. And there's different types of REITs that you want to define as well. There's private REITs, there's public REITs. Private REITs are basically like startup companies, so there's much more risk and less liquidity, where a publicly traded REIT is much more liquid and is more well established. There's typically not as much risk. And I just want to exercise some caution here because I've seen a lot of problems with individuals that have bought real estate investment trusts over the years, specifically in the private real estate investment trust world. And I feel like this is starting to dissipate, but I interviewed an advisor a number of years ago, and when that advisor was looking for a position, he said, well, I have trouble leaving where I'm at today because as a broker, you're asking me to give up commissions on making real estate investment trust sales. Every time he would sell a real estate investment trust, he'd make 7%. And then it would be liquid in a year or 2 years. He'd go back and sell it again for another 7%. So in some cases, he was making 7% a year, and that became his whole focus of his whole practice. It was all in selling real estate investment trusts. That was the one-size-fits-all solution for everything and everyone. And in many cases, those products are sold as an alternative to the stock market, saying, hey, if you want out of the stock market, this is an uncorrelated asset class, you're going to get consistent income from it. However, you have to recognize what's not often told is the level of risk that's being taken. They default and they can be completely illiquid. Those particular REITs that were sold then, they stopped going liquid liquid. And now individuals are stuck in a position where they may not get the bulk of their money out of those things ever. They may still get some income, but they may never get their original principal back.
So Kel from Fort Wayne writes, what is the biggest misconception you see from your clients with regard to how much money they truly need to be able to retire?
Well, I think quite often, Kel, this is just an arbitrary number, and it goes back to what we've talked about before. We just Google it. How much do I need to retire? And you hear articles, well, you need $1 million to retire. That's what I hear most often. Well, I need $1 million, and I need $1 million. I've helped individuals retire with $250,000 to their name because they have pensions, because they have Social Security. I know individuals that live on Social Security because they just don't spend that much. And so I think that's one of those things that you have to be careful of, is just picking an arbitrary number. And also just a scarcity mindset that the generation of baby boomers often have because of the experiences that they've seen from their parents or grandparents. I know I saw that from my grandparents, right? They never had enough. There was always scarcity in what they had because they'd been through so much through the Great Depression, and now that may not apply to you anymore. You may need to let go of some of those notions that you have that really don't apply to you anymore. Maybe they applied to your parents, maybe they applied to you when you were a kid, that you didn't have much, but let's sit down, put together a real plan that shows you that you actually have enough. Maybe you have enough to last the rest of your life, and you can bury it in the backyard, you just don't know it yet. You have to ditch that scarcity mindset and get a real plan.
You know, Kel, you might benefit from reading Casey's book, Job Optional. Lots of stories, kind of real-world histories of how they've worked with clients to help them get to the stage of retirement. So you might think about that, Kel. And we're going to make it easy for you as well. You can be one of the next 10 callers at 866-482-9559 to request a copy of Casey's book, Job Optional. It's all about building your financial confidence so you can achieve the state of being job optional. You work if you want to, maybe you don't need to, using the money that you've already made to create a legacy that you can start living today. So I hope you're one of the next 10 people who calls 866-482-9559 to request a copy of Casey's book, Job Optional. That's 866-482-9559. We thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next week.
Hi, Casey Weade, president of Howard Bailey Financial. Planning for a secure and independent retirement requires staying on top of the latest trends. New retirement regulations, trillion-dollar stimulus packages, and a pivotal election year all need to be taken into consideration. The Howard Bailey team is here to support you. We develop retirement plans driven by meaning and purpose, so you can stop worrying about what's next and focus on what means the most to you today. Call now for a complimentary consultation and a customized plan of action.